Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello, students. Very warm welcome to a biology lesson on TV. I'm teacher Herbert, and I'm very happy to be with you in that lesson of biology, the lesson is on Unit 10. Skin and the homeostatic mechanism. You know, in the previous lesson, we talked about the skin, where we talked about the functions of the skin, playing a role in regulation of temperature. Also does a function of protection, where we say the skin is acting as a barrier for the entry of pathogens and other microorganisms, and even water. We mentioned about the parts of the skin. I think you do remember. We talked about the major parts of the skin. We talked about the epidermis. We talked about the major constituents or the part that makes up the epidermis. And we talked about the dermis, which is the lower part of the skin. We mentioned the internal structure of the skin. And we try to make about the skin in general. So before I start my lesson, I would like to inform you to go to be near on your TV, and you watch the lesson, and you must be having a book and a pen. You try to note the important information or concepts that will be found in that lesson. So as I mentioned, the lesson of today is concerning about a regulation of body temperature. Why do we need to regulate body temperature? So let's start our lesson, and we have to go through the learning objectives of the lesson. The learning objective of the lesson is to describe the maintenance of a constant body temperature in human in terms of insulation, and the role of temperature receptors in the skin. We also have to discuss about sweating. We talk about sweating and even shivering. So let's go through the introduction as I mentioned. Dear students, I'm very happy to be with you in that lesson where we're going to be sharing the ideas about temperature regulation. Many activities in the body needed to be catalyzed by enzymes, and enzymes has the optimum temperature at which it works best. As you remember, enzymes must be having a specific temperature at which they work best. And this temperature is approximately the normal body temperature of the body. You know, as I've been telling you several times, the normal body temperature, is 37 degrees Celsius. So that these are the normal body temperature, and which needed by the enzyme to perform their functions efficiently and effectively. Therefore, in order to ensure the optimum functioning of enzyme within to ensure the optimum functioning of the enzymes within the core body temperature, it needed to be maintained more or less constant. So the temperature is needed to be maintained more or less constant. What does it mean? So it means that when it falls below the normal value, the enzyme catalyzed reaction of animals will be slowed down. Similarly too, when the temperature is too much in the body, it may result into enzyme denaturation. If I say enzyme denaturation, it means destroying our enzymes in the body, hence reducing what we call catalytic activities. Let's go to regulation of temperature, or what you call thermoregulation. How does the temperature of the body become a negative mechanism? If I talk about negative mechanism, that is decreasing or diminishing decrease something to a normal functioning. That is what does the negative feedback do. It reduces, it decreases something that causes that effect to happen. It suppresses the effect that has been causing either increase in temperature or something that causes the lowering of temperature. So that is to say, we use the biology books and give the reasons why sweating when it is too hot and shivering when it is cold is important to our body. So we're going to use some textbooks. We're going to use very many books to understand why is shivering when it is too cold is important to our body, and why is it that also sweating is also very important to our body when it is too hot. So we are going to present we are going to make a finding and we present it. So let's go. All animals generate heat and have a way to retain it within their body. What does it mean? It means that most of the animals, they know how to generate heat within their body and how to retain the lost heat in their bodies. You know, the animals, most of the animals, I'm talking about mammals and birds. For them, they have a way of generating the temperature that has been lost, or how to generate a temperature when the temperature is very low. They also have a physiological method to balance the heat again, that is retention of the body heat and heat loss, so that they can be maintained constant body temperature. So it means that the body temperature has to be maintained constant. When we are talking about that, remember we are talking about temperature regulation. As a result, we are not dependent on absorbing heat from their surrounding, and can be active at any time of the day or night, whatever the external temperature is. Let's go. Most of the animals, with exception of birds, rely on external source of heat, and they are often relatively inactive when it is too cold. Some of the animals, they become inactive when it is too cold. I will give an example of some of the animals that are inactive when it is too cold. An example, we can talk about lizards. Lizards, they don't carry any locomotion when it is too cold. All right? So they need to to absorb heat from the surrounding and become more active. Mammals and birds, mammals and birds are called homothermic or endothermic. Student, I want to ask you, what do you understand by endotherms or endotherms or homotherms? These are organisms whose body temperature remains constant regardless of external factors. Take an example like human. Human is an example of homeostatic or endotherms. Because our body temperature, student, I said our body temperature has to be maintained constantly at 37 degrees Celsius. And whereas take an example, whereas those that depends on external source of heat are called ectotherms. Ectotherms, these are picrotherms, whose body temperature varies according to the environment. So the body temperature, we have talked about endotherms and ectotherms. We have talked about endotherms and homotherms. We have talked about picrotherms or ectotherms, and I think everybody is able to distinguish the two. The animals whose body temperature remains constant regardless of external factors, these are called homeostatic. The word homeo, it means the same. Some means the temperature. And then, or sometimes they are called endotherms. Then picrotherms or ectotherms, these are organisms or animals whose body temperatures varies according to the environment. So here, let me talk about in human beings. This is at about 37 degrees Celsius. As I mentioned, the normal body temperature in human is 37 degrees Celsius. So it means we are endotherms or homeotherms. It means our body temperature remains constant regardless of external factors. The body can generate heat by metabolic processes, which causes the change in body temperature. These metabolic processes can also make a heat to be generated in the body, or can also make heat to be lost in the body. These are called physiological processes, metabolic processes. Let me talk about the body temperature also can change due to the gain of heat from the environment. When you are in an environment where the temperature is very high, the body can gain heat. And once it gains heat, the body tries by all means to do what? To strike a balance, to make it on what you call a standstill, so that some of the body metabolism or body activities cannot be affected. So the skin contains receptors that monitors the change in skin temperature. So we have some receptors in the skin, as I mentioned it. These receptors are responsible to detect any change in temperature in the skin. Once the temperature changes, there must be a detector. And those detectors are called receptors, and are able to send the information or the signals to the brain, and the brain will be able to respond and inform the responsible organ either throw down the temperature or to increase the temperature. Let's talk about, I said, if the core temperature decreases, or if the temperature receptors in the skin detects a decrease in temperature, what happens? Once these detectors has detected there is a decrease in temperature in the body, the core temperature in the body has decreased, what will happen? Automatically, the surrounding environment. We talk about the surrounding environment. The hypothalamus. I think the hypothalamus is a part of the brain which is found in the hindbrain. The part of the brain which is found in the hindbrain and is responsible for detecting any change in temperature. A hypothalamus sends the impulses. If I talk about impulses, what are impulses? Impulses, those are electrical signals. They are sent in form of impulses or nerve messages. They go to the brain, and particularly I'm talking about the part of the brain is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is to inform the responsible organ, and now able the temperature to be raised up if it has fallen down or if it has decreased. They activate the following physiological processes. Now, after once it is lowered down, now these physiological processes has to be activated, and now the temperature will be increased. These are processes after the temperature is lowered down. I'm going to go through number one is one of the things that will happen when the temperature has dropped down is what you call a vasoconstriction. Another one is shivering. I know what you call shivering. Everybody knows how we call shivering. When it is too cold, most of us will shiver. Once we are shivering, the bones beat one another in a process of generating heat. Once the bones beat one another, they generate the heat. The third is what you call raising of the body hairs, or what you call body fur. The hair on the skin are raised up. They stand up so that they can just trap the moisture so that the temperature cannot escape from the body. We have another one, which is, now this one is concerning about the decrease. Let's go through these processes of how when the temperature is low. What do we do? We do what we call vasoconstriction. What is vasoconstriction? The walls of arterioles that supplies blood, the capillaries, near the skin surface, contract. They do contract. These capillaries that has been supplying the blood to the skin, they contract. Once they contract, what will happen? This one causes this narrows the rumen. So narrowing makes the rumen to become narrow, to become very small. Get what I'm saying? It comes to be narrowing of the rumen of the arterioles and reduces the supply of blood to the capillaries so that less heat is lost from the blood. In that way, the heat will not get lost from the blood. All right? The heat will going to be maintained in that way. So I can talk about, I said, this is what we call vasoconstriction. vasoconstriction is one of the processes of regulating body temperature by what we call constriction of the narrowing of the lumen of the arterioles, and reduces the supply of blood to the capillaries. This means when the blood vessels are in constricted state, less blood flows to the surface of the skin. And in that way, once there is less blood flowing in the surface of the skin, automatically heat loss will be gained. And less heat is going to be lost from our body. If there is less heat being lost in our body, so vasoconstriction in general, it reduces, increases the heat loss decreases the heat loss in our body. Let me talk about another one. It is lowering of body hairs, what you call fur. The muscles attach the hairs, relax, so that it lie flat, reducing the dips of the fur, and that is the fur and the layer of the insulation. Shivering is another way how the temperature can just be raised up. I said the involuntary contraction of the skeletal muscles generate the heat which is absorbed by the blood and carried out and carried around the rest of the body. So it means that also shivering is one way of increasing the body temperature. We have another one which is called rising of the body hair. Once the body hair is raised up, that is one way of making when the hair is the raising of the hair on the body, it prevents the heat escaping from the body. That's what I said. The erectile peel muscles at the base of the hairs in the skin contract to increase the depths of the fur, so that trap air moisture across the skin, and air is a poor conductor of heat, therefore a good insulator. Once it traps the moisture and air, that one will be acting as a bad conductor of heat and becomes to be an insulator, so it means that heat will no longer escape from the body. Let's talk about decrease of the production of sweat. That is, say, when the temperature is very low, you don't sweat. Remember, when it is too cold, what happens? You don't sweat, and if you don't sweat, it means that sweating is going, there is a suppress, there is a stopping of sweating, decrease of production of sweat. That one is one way of increasing the body temperature when the temperature is very low. Another one is, which is when the temperature is very low, increasing the secretion of adrenaline hormone. And I told you a hormone is a chemical messenger, and these hormones, they normally move to the target organ to cause an effect. Let me say the temperature was very low. So adrenaline hormone is produced, and once it is produced, what happens? From the adrenaline gland, and increases the rate of heat production in the liver. So once adrenaline hormone is produced, and is produced by adrenaline gland, you know adrenaline gland is located at the summit of the kidney. And once that hormone is produced, it is produced to increase the heat production by the liver. And now we're going to increase our body temperature. When increase in environment temperature is detected by the skin receptors, or what you call central thermoreceptors, the hypothalamus increases the loss of heat from the body and reduces heat production by sending impulses. And here I want to say, when the temperature is very high, not very low. Let me say, when the temperature is, when it is too hot, what happens to the body? How do the body tries to regulate that body temperature? One of the things that we do, it is what called vasodilation. They have been talking about vasoconstriction when the muscles contract, and once these muscles contract, they try to reduce the blood flow in blood vessels. So vasodilation, the muscles in the arterioles in the skin, they do relax. And once they relax, what happens? It allows more blood to flow through the capillaries so that heat is lost to the surrounding. This means that when the blood vessels are deleted, in a deleted state, more blood flows to the surface of the skin and more heat is going to be lost. Let's go. Another process is lowering of the body hairs or the fur on the skin. Once the hairs on the skin are lowered down, automatically that is one way of reducing the body temperature when it is high. Muscles attached to the hair relaxes so that they lie flat, reducing the depth of the fur and the layer of insulation. So in that way, once the layer of insulation is reduced, eventually the temperature is going to be lowered down. We have increasing sweat production. In the process of increasing, we talked about there is a decrease in sweat production. But here, when the temperature is very high, we do sweat. When we sweat, it is a way of reducing body temperature when it is very high. We have some diagram. We have diagram. This one is called vasoconstriction. When the top of the hand showing less conspicuous veins compared to that one. The veins are conspicuous, but here the veins are more conspicuous. So here there is this one. The diagram tries to show a vasoconstriction. That diagram tries to show a vasodilation. So vasoconstriction, that is when the temperature is very low, when there is a decrease in temperature. Then vasodilation, that is when the temperature is very high. So let's go to when the body temperature returns to a normal after physiological processes. This described above, regulation is described as a negative feedback. Negative feedback, that is suppressing or decreasing the effect that was causing either decrease in temperature or increase in temperature. That one is referred as negative feedback. The whole mechanism can be summarized. Let me just show you a summarized diagram that shows the whole process I was talking about. That is a diagram that shows the whole process. We see the body temperature is the normal body temperature. Here I can talk about the body temperature drops down, so the body temperature has decreased. On that side, we have body temperature rises above the normal. What will happen? We're going to see what happens. That's supposed to be hot bath, high environmental temperature. This is cold bath, low environmental temperature. What happens? Brain signals it. I talked about the hypothalamus. Once the hypothalamus detects it, what happens? The response is to inform the responsible organs or glands to do these following things. When it is a cold bath, there's reducing sweating, number one. Number two, vasoconstriction. And number three is erectile pillar muscles, they contract. And we have this supposed to be, and if this one happens, automatically the temperature is increased and goes back to normal. We have this side, which is showing when the hot bath, when it is too hot, what happens to what is the negative feedback we will do in order to return back the body temperature to normal. We have the response by the skin. What does the skin do? Increasing sweating. When it is too hot, there is what you call increase in sweating. There is vasodilation. The blood vessels, they dilate. They don't constrict. In that way, the blood flow will increase and temperature will be able to, the temperature will be able to be lowered down. Erectile pillar muscles, they relax. They don't contract. And hair or the fur on the skin is going to be raised up. So that is a summarized diagram that shows a negative feedback mechanism of regulation of temperature. So students, let's try to, maybe go back and I try to let you revise that thing again. I said normal body temperature, I talked about normal body temperature is at 7 degrees Celsius. I said when the body temperature drops below normal, what happens? The brain signals it, and I say the part of the brain which is responsible for that is the hypothalamus. and we're able to respond negatively to the effect that causes the drop down of the temperature. So we have reducing of sweating, vasoconstriction, erectile repeated muscles, they contract and stand, and hair stands. Then on that one, when the body temperature is very low, there is increase of sweating, of vasodilation, and I think you remember the diagrams, I showed the diagrams of vasodilation and vasoconstriction in terms of the blood vessels. Erectile repeated muscles, they relax, and hair temperature returns to normal. That one goes to what we call, now the temperature is reduced, here the temperature is increased. And all that one summarizes what you call a negative feedback of regulation of temperature in human. So let's go through the home activity. The assignment to the lesson. I left with you almost like, there are almost 3 numbers. Number 1, heat is lost from our skin on a hot day by dash. A, movement of the skin, capillaries, near to the surface. B, relaxation of the arterioles so that the skin capillaries carry more blood. C, opening of the pores of all sweat glands. D, evaporation of water from sebaceous glands. Number 2, what is the result of rise in body temperature? Decrease in production of sweat, an increase in blood flow to the skin, narrowing of blood vessels in the skin, a rise of the hairs on the skin. Number 3, describes 3 physiological processes involves in the regulation of temperature in animals. So students, thank you very much for watching and participating. See you next time, and stay safe, and may God bless you.